I'm assuming we are. So have I any apologies? Conflicts of interest? Confirmation of minutes. Somebody prepared to move 3.1, please. Moved Councillor Williams. Seconded Councillor Blackie. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Any matters arising from the minutes? No. I have no deputations. We go on to reports. 5.1. Who's running that? Stuart, who's running?
Kelly.
Sorry.
Kelly's going to lead away with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is on the February 2022 flood event. I'd first of all like to begin by introducing Emil Klopper from Becker. He is on the call. He is one of two consultants we have engaged to assist us with our flood work. So he is the flood team lead. We also have Jack Boyd from from Stantec assisting us as well. So the purpose of this report is to give an update on the current status of the further work we're doing in response to not only the February event, but also picking up on the May 2021 and December 2021 event as well. There is about 600 service requests that we've been working through, and they have been triaged and grouped. And you'll see that we have got roughly about 60 further investigations that we are currently working our way through. So obviously that's quite a large amount of work, and we're expecting that's going to take a number of months, 2 or 3 months for us to work through. But we're currently getting a more definitive program together. In terms of communications, everyone that has lodged a service request has had an initial response, and we intend directly following up with people to let them know the outcome of the further investigation work. We are also putting out some general communications, so that's in the form of updating our webpage. So currently that is out of date, but we're working through a draft to update that at the moment. And that will cover information on the most recent event, as well as the 60-odd investigations that we're progressing through. We're also underway with doing targeted consultation to the Kaiapoi residents. A lot of the service requests we got for Kaiapoi related to issues that will be addressed as part of the Shovel Ready project. So that is going to get integrated with communications for the Shovel Ready works. And then we plan to do a more targeted flyer, potentially as part of a local newsletter to the Waikuku Beach residents. It's fair to say that with the amount of rainfall that we've had, we've got saturated catchments in the district, and also groundwater levels are very high at the moment, particularly in the coastal area. And our drainage team is experiencing quite a number of service requests at the moment. In the report, I think I signalled that we had about 1,400 service requests in the last year, in just over the 2 weeks that we have had since this report was written. That has now increased to about 1,530. So that's almost double what we get in a typical 12-month period. So that just signals the quantum of work that we're trying to work through at the moment. In terms of maintenance work, this isn't covered in the report, but I just thought I'd give you a quick update because I know there has been some concerns about maintenance recently, particularly in the Kaiapoi area. So Falbert Drain has been fully cleared out. The pump station, we've done the initial investigation work, and that has identified that some remedial works will need to be done, but there's further investigation of the pumps that we need to do there. Dudley Drain has been cleaned out from Ahoka Road through down to Hilton Street, and there's still a section to do between Hilton and Raven Quay, and Sunday school drain along the railway line has been cleaned out. You'll note in section 4.7 of the report, the list of nearly 60 drainage investigations that we are proceeding with. And to date, we've just highlighted which ones are underway, but in future reports, we hope to give you more of a program of when we'll be working through those. The key thing with that list is just to make sure we've captured everything and that nothing is missing. I'm happy to take any general comments, but if there are specific issues relating to particular properties, it's probably best to address those separately. So like I've signalled, this is a first of subsequent reports to come back to this committee to keep you informed of progress as we work through all of these investigations. Just a further point to note that if any capital works comes out of these investigations, we will be addressing those as part of a staff submission to the 22-23 annual plan. So happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kelly. So I've got Dan, Paul, and then Neville. Dan.
Thanks, Kelly. Very good report. Thank you for that. The comms pieces that you're talking about, the flyers and material, just wondering if you could make sure that the drafts are sent by elected members to see before they go out, to see that they are addressing the points that we're aware of in those communities.
Sure, we can do that. We're also working with our comms team on those as well.
Thank you.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, hi Kelly. I'm just a wee bit concerned about the ability of our contractors to have enough men on the ground for doing it. Do we need to bring in extra contractors to get some of these problems, particularly the maintenance ones that have been outstanding for quite a number of time now? So is it time to bring in some extra help to help our existing contractors?
Yeah, we will. Yes, we will definitely be looking at that. And it's fair to say that there is a backlog of maintenance work, and also some of our contractors are struggling with resources from a COVID perspective as well. I know that Jared has been in contact with his counterpart at Cord, and they have made prioritise work such that we're getting back on top of the maintenance program here. But if necessary, if they are still struggling to keep up, then we would look at external resources beyond our maintenance contractor to get that work done.
Okay.
So Councillor Atkins, you put your hand down. You happy, Campo?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. It was the Run Reviews Muse, so I just wondered how far along that investigation is.
Yes, so just generally talking about that, we have had some CCTV work undertaken both on-site and off-site there. It hasn't identified any obvious blockages, but it has identified a number of different things that we are following up on. Both in terms of on-site, that it appears that that there might be some on-site works that we can do regarding venting to improve the situation. And secondly, looking at our system downstream, there's evidence of surcharge occurring that we haven't fully got our heads around at the moment. So further investigations are ongoing there. We were monitoring the recent rainfall event that we've had overnight. There was a little bit of a response in that catchment, but nothing obvious. or nothing major rather. The other thing that we're doing is deploying level sensors into that catchment so we can actually see to what extent the system is surcharging during future rainfall events. So potentially the way forward there, depending on the outcome of that investigation, might actually be a combination of doing improvements both within our reticulation in the street, as well as upgrades to the on-site reticulation at Ranui News.
Councillor Stewart, followed by Councillor Barnett.
Thank you. I looked for the web page the other night and couldn't find anything. You indicate that you're updating it. Is there actually any web page anywhere that the public can go to at the moment? Because I couldn't. It's not on the home page. Where is it?
Yeah, it is a little bit difficult to navigate to, so that will be one thing that we address with the comms people in terms of making it more obvious. To get to it at the moment, you need to go to Water Services, Stormwater, and then it's under the Drainage Works link.
Okay. Well, that would be nice too. I mean, can even that go on the homepage or somewhere where it makes it easier? I mean, I wouldn't have found that in a million years. But yeah, looking forward to actually seeing communications ramp up on all this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barnett.
Yes, thank you very much, Kelly. Probably more of a question for Gerard if he's there. But there was a lot of other work that was all to do with signs and flooding preparation for next time. And I noticed there's been the odd thing has been done, but have we seen an overall report of the roading and drainage, the progress together? Because rather than doing it department by department, because it's kind of hard to know who to ask.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So there are a number of things we've done in terms of there's been some requests for permanent, examples of permanent flood signs, those sorts of things which we're initiating. We do actually have a need for bringing a report relating to roading to the committee. We've been engaging with Waka Kotahi about co-funding. And those are ongoing. So the most recent being the bridge collapse in Mill Road. So we should bring another report, whether we bring it as a roading report and a separate drainage report, or we include it in the next update. Look, we'll present it, whichever's going to work. But yeah, you're right. We should be actually reporting to you on the roading issues as well, rather than just drainage.
Councillor Blakey.
Thank you, Kelly. We did that tour in after February in Kaiapoi with several of us with you, and we looked at those grills that hadn't been lifted for 2 years, etc., etc. You were going to go to Sycon Court and come back to us, because we were talking about a actual breach of the contract there. In that, I think you said those things are meant to be routinely inspected. Was it 12 weekly, something like that? And they haven't been for literally years. Did you accost, if that's the right word, Cord on, I mean, apart from the COVID shortage of manpower, I get that, but did you actually talk to them about not fulfilling the contract as it is written, and what was their response to that?
So we have had a discussion internally with that, and that was part of Gerard's discussion with Cord as well. They had feedback to us that they want to be proactive in that space to address it, and to the areas that were pointed out during that tour, to use those as indicators of where areas are not being addressed. So Cord gave a very positive response to that, as I understand it, Gerard.
Yeah, and look, I've taken that up at a senior level with Cord as part of our regular schedule of meetings, And they've certainly, definitely not only demonstrated a willingness, but have agreed to a program of inspections and maintenance that's required. So we're definitely working through that with our road maintenance contractor right now.
Thanks for that. Can't see any more questions. We have a recommendation in front of us. Somebody prepared to move? Move Councillor Williams. Seconded. Councillor Blackie. Councillor Williams. Any comment? You muted there, Paul.
Sorry about that. Yeah, it's just straightforward. I think it's something we need to start going with haste, because nothing worse than water getting near properties and everything. And we are quite behind in some of our maintenance. So it looks good to get things moving. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Blackie.
Yeah, no, nothing to add. Thanks, Kelly. Good report.
Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Another question, actually. Of the drainage requests that you've listed here in the report, how many are not in a drainage rating area? Is it just those 9 in the district drainage list, or are there more?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. Emil might have that more information at his fingertips. I'm not sure. But I think that gives probably an indication of, the fact that we've got 9 out of 59 investigations is probably about an indication of how many direct service requests we would have had from outside of drainage rating areas. Emil, I'm not sure if you can add anything further to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not 100% sure how many. I have it somewhere in one of my spreadsheets, and I can give it to you, but I don't have it in front of me yet.
We can follow up with an email
Yeah,
to
cool.
you.
If you could just do that analysis and send it out to all of us just for information, that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Will do.
Any reply, Councillor Williams? No, I'll put it. All those in favour, thumbs up. Passed. For those against? Gets carried. Brings us through to 5.2. Colin, I think you're leading this, I think.
Yes, that's right. Thank you and good afternoon. So this report is to gain the Utilities and Roading Committee's endorsement of proposed submissions on the drinking water standards. So one of Te Mata Arawai's first jobs after they became the new drinking water regulator was to review the drinking water standards and revise them, and which has meant basically a complete overhaul of the old standards. So rather than revising them, it's a whole new set of standards and rules. We've prepared submissions on 5 of the different consultation documents and also a cover letter. As you'll be aware, I've got an amended recommendation which I'll share at the end as well, just and talk through that a little bit more. But I'll just go through a couple of key points briefly and then get to the amended recommendation after that. So yeah, as I said, there's 5 consultation documents, so there's quite a lot of content there. And I definitely won't go through it all, but a couple of key points that I'd made were one of the documents was about the aesthetic values. These have a greater weighting under the Water Services Act, where suppliers are expected to take all practical steps to meet them, whereas in the old, under the Health Act, they were just guideline values and there's no obligation to meet them. So that creates a greater level of significance, which I think hadn't been thought through fully, with some aesthetic parameters in there, such as a minimum pH value and a minimum chlorine level, actually not having any aesthetic meaning. As far as I could see, no one can taste water with a low pH and no one complains if they can't taste chlorine strong enough in their water. So I think those particular ones were misplaced in the aesthetic section, so I suggested they be removed. The most significant document is the quality assurance rules, which is all the documentation around what suppliers need to do to demonstrate compliance. In general, there's a lot more reporting, a lot more monitoring, a lot more sampling, and there are requirements in Water Services Act, or a theme in the Act anyway, that obligations for suppliers be proportionate to scale. And one area in particular where I felt that wasn't the case was with some of the distribution system monitoring, where under the current standards, suppliers need to take a monthly E. coli sample. For very small suppliers of 50 people right up to 20,000 people, they now require daily checks of chlorine and pH levels. So with that, first going from monthly to daily is a big change, and also for having the same requirements from 50 people up to 20,000 didn't seem to be taking into account the proportionate to scale requirement. So I made that one of my key points, is just to ensure they actually are proportionate to scale, rather than in some cases having quite onerous requirements right down to the very smallest suppliers. And then I think the most significant point that I had made was around the transition timeframes. There's, as I said earlier, there's a lot of new obligations with sampling, reporting, and also more treatment requirements. So suppliers that didn't used to need treatment will now need treatment. And despite the required changes being so significant, the signaled timeframe to comply is basically that we expect to get confirmation on what the final standards are sometime in May, possibly mid to late May, and then be expected to comply from the 1st of July. So while we've been waiting, close to 6 years to see what these standards are post Havelock North, to have only 6 weeks to then come up to meet them is a very short turnaround. And that point has been made already in the draft submission. But the recommendation I'll just share now that I'm proposing is really just to strengthen some of that. So just let me get familiar with Zoom, which I don't usually use. This one looks like it. So hopefully you can all see that now.
Colin, can you zoom in a bit, please?
Oh,
a
yes.
bit closer?
Yep. So in black is the recommendations in the report that was on the agenda, and in red is the proposed additional words. So what I'm suggesting is that there will be final amendments made to these submissions, in particular to reinforce the transitional issues associated with the standards, and particularly with regard to chlorination, at the approval of the Chief Executive and Mayor, taking into account feedback received from councillors. So we'll have a workshop later on the general, chlorine exemption process and the new standards and how those line up. And that will be an opportunity to get any really detailed feedback. But we felt like there's still will be new information coming to light about exactly how the transition will work that we think we haven't fully covered in the submission, although we've touched on transition to some extent. So that was the proposed amendment. That's also essentially what I wanted to say in talking to this. So I'm happy to take any questions. I'll stop sharing this, but I can do it again if people want to look at it.
So, Councillor Stewart, is your hand still up from the previous, or do you have a new question?
No, I've got a new question.
Oh.
Thank you. I apologise for not actually going into all those separate submissions that you've done. I couldn't see how to do that. But however, my question is, maximum allowable values for iron, manganese, arsenic, nitrate. Is any material change to those levels in these new standards proposed?
No, not material. In general, the standards are based or the maximum acceptable values are based on World Health Organization values by and large, which was the case with the old standards. So there's been no significant change with any of those parameters. Yeah.
I thought nitrate had gone down as far as the World Health Organization to around about 10 milligrams.
There is some across the board, and this was actually the case with the Ministry of Health standards as well as the Te Mata Arawai ones. The Ministry of Health, I think their standards are based on an average adult weight of 60 kilograms, and then in New Zealand, that's amended to 70 kilograms. So some of the World Health Organization values increased for New Zealand by whatever that percentage difference is. So that might be why we're at 11.3 for nitrate and not 10. But that's not a change with these standards versus the old. That's always been the case.
Yeah, so and that all remains.
Yes.
Thank you.
Councillor Blackie.
Thank you. Kelly, just confirmation, please. The small suppliers, I'm thinking farms here with farm cottages. Am I correct in thinking that one cottage, apart from the main house, is okay, and more than one, they'll be rated as a supplier? Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. So these that was already set basically by the Water Services Act. They are suppliers, but these standards are what set out what those suppliers then have to do to prove compliance. And that was another point that I've made in the proposed submissions that again, I didn't feel like I think they're headed in the right direction in that they have what they've called acceptable solutions. So basically, rather than having a really comprehensive set of standards for even the tiniest little supply, they've basically said if you build this acceptable solution and monitor it in this way, then you'll comply. So I think the philosophy is good to get just almost like an off-the-shelf treatment system of a cartridge filter and UV, and a small supplier will comply. But again, they haven't really taken into account the proportionate to scale thing as much as they could. So some of those acceptable solutions for either spring or bore water or rural agricultural suppliers, they have the same requirements from like one or I guess two houses right up to 500 people. Whereas some of the other rules on demand supplies, they have a less than 50 category and then a 50 to 500 category. So I'm saying that they should have a less than 50 category for all those ones, because they're probably going to get tens of thousands of two house supplies and not that many kind of 400 person supplies. So the rules have been tailored towards the larger end of the scale, not the smaller end.
Thank you.
And even with what I've submitted, I think it is still going to be a big step up for those small suppliers. But I guess it's finding that balance.
Okay, so we have an amended recommendation. Is a member prepared to move? Moved Councillor Williams, seconded. I'll second. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, no, thank you, Colin. Good report, and I think we need to carry on with our good work on our waters. Thank you.
I've got nothing to add. Any other members? No reply. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Thumbs up. Against? Carried. Moves on to item 6, which is correspondence. I have none. Reports referred. So there's one matter for information, 8.1. Somebody prepared to move that we receive 8.1. Move Councillor Blackie, seconded me. I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Go into quick round of portfolio updates. Roading, Councillor Williams.
Yeah, not a great deal on roading at the moment. I went on a wee trip yesterday inspecting some of our gravel roads, and some of them have been washed out a wee bit by a lot of flood waters and the heavy rain we've had. So we do need to look at remedying a few of the problems there. So that's really about on the roading side of things at this stage.
Thank you very much. Drainage and stock water, Councillor Stewart.
Thank you. Just looking forward to a briefing that is in the works on drainage rating. As you know, we have a bit of a mishmash across the district with urban and some rural, and here we have a district-wide flood protection drainage rate. And we also have ECAN now proposing a new region-wide rate. I'd like to get my head around exactly what all these different rates are going to deliver, and we have a briefing, I understand, coming to us on that. And I'm waiting to see the draft on the new Stockwater bylaw communications package.
Thank you for that. Thank you. Utilities, Councillor Williams.
Hi, yes. Wastewater constructions works on the Central Rangira Sewer Stage 5 and Wood End Road Rising Main projects are progressing well. I see the one from Loburn Lee is connected on the Ashby side of it, and that's progressing well as well. Water supply, we're continuing with the flushing and testing on the Wood End Kaipui schemes following a high coliform detection. So that's happening. We've had a couple of burst pipes on the Church Street main burst, and so that's being investigated, the reasons why that's been happening at the moment. That's really, the backflow prevention policy is still ongoing, and yeah, and it's all happening. So that's about it on the water. Okay.
Thank you very much. Solid waste, which is me. You will have seen that I sent out an email half an hour before the meeting. That was in the interest of time, and hopefully that can be included in the minutes. However, one thing that didn't include was an email I got from Kitty yesterday. She wants to reintroduce audits. I had while that's operational, there's also a political aspect. I raised the health and safety concern that I had. She assures me that that has been mitigated and that they'll be fully gowned and be using a stick as opposed to physically going into the bins. If any members have an issue with regard to those audits being recommenced, if you could send me an email, it'd be much appreciated. So that's it from me. We go to transport. The Mayor, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Just briefly, had a meeting with NZTA and a concerned resident regarding Mulcox Road. It was really to try and get an understanding and alignment of what NZTA are proposing along Lineside Road and the works that we need to be considering. This resident was concerned with the sort of level of accidents that have happened there. So that was a good engagement, and obviously that's something we'll be discussing further with staff in due course. But to understand NZTA's direction there, which they haven't entirely clear about at this point, was useful to gain an understanding of. The other is we've got a meeting with the Minister, Chief Executive's joining that with the Greater Christchurch Partnership. It's the Minister of Transport on the 4th of April. It's really to talk about investment in the Greater Christchurch Partnership area, and that's been driven by notices of motion in Christchurch City Council and Selwyn, and we've supported that conversation and said that it should be at a Greater Christchurch level, and pleased that they have decided to do that, and it includes all the Greater Christchurch Partnership. So that's on the 4th of April.
Thank you very much. So we go on to item 10, questions. I have none. I have no urgent general business. So I'll move from the chair that we go into public excluded. Somebody prepared to second. Yep, Councillor Williams, thank you. And we'll wait to be disconnected, I guess.